Okay, guys, second review. I did a review before this for White Knight, Dark Knight, or excuse me, for Batman White Knight before this, and it was live. Apparently, the stream is real choppy that I did, so I may end up going back and reviewing that book again if I ever get my computer fixed. Forces have aligned against me and the stars. And I'm going to talk about the first three issues of Tom King's Mr. Miracle book through DC Comics, right? And I was going to wait, but it's kind of cool because just like the book, our Scott Free is an unreliable narrator, perhaps. This will be an unreliable review because we are three issues in, and I can already definitely tell going into the first three issues is that this is a story that is going to have to be read as a whole. It's very existential, very surreal, and it's one of those things where when you read it as a whole, it's going to come together. In other words, we have somebody writing a possible classic here, or I don't know about a classic, but it's definitely going to be one of those books that you can go through over and over and rewatch. Okay, and so basically, we are in the 100th. This would have been the 100th birthday of Jack Kirby if he was alive, right? And so, DC's come out with a whole bunch of books Bug, Commandy Challenge, Mr. Miracle, a bunch of one shots and stuff to kind of, celebrate the birthday. But the thing about the Mr. Miracle book is where it's like somebody has jumped up. Tom King, hey guys, Tom King has jumped up. He has taken this by the throat and he is really showing what he has. Tom King has been described as the next Alan Moore I've seen in places, not a whole lot. Don't think that's fair. I think for our times, this is a guy that brings something to the table that's different. So maybe I don't want to like talk about people's opinions, but maybe, we've had such lackluster books and event fatigue and all this stuff that somebody's coming up and bringing up something fresh, which is just fantastic. The guy is talented. The guy has a great history, apparently, working with the CIA and things like that. And the guy definitely comes to a table with his own voice. Flip through some of his Batman stuff, not my stuff. Mr. Miracle, definitely my stuff. Okay, so what we have with Mr. Miracle is that I said at the beginning of this video, we have a little bit of an unreliable narrator. We also have the concept of the New Gods. It's like Tom King has gone back to Jack Kirby's New Gods, and Jack Kirby pulled in Christianity, mythology, Judaism, and he put a lot of things in there and mixed them in for these characters with the New Gods. Okay, High Father, Dark Side. This is one of those books you can enjoy without knowing this stuff, but it kind of helps you to interpret if you know where this stuff came from. And I'm comparing this to the story of Jacob's ladder from the book of Genesis in the Bible and stuff, right? I'm not well versed on what exactly the story is, but I feel like it's Jacob's ladder. A lot of people go straight to the movie from the 80s, which is fine. But basically, Jacob's ladder is that you had two brothers fighting, and they were going to inherit something in the name of God or something. So you had Jacob, and his brother's name started with an E. I'm not sure what it was. My apologies. Especially on a Sunday morning, I should know this stuff. Maybe I should research. And in the midst of these two brothers fighting and stuff, Jacob has a dream. He sees a ladder, and it takes him to heaven, and he sees God, and God speaks to him and lets him know that he's going to inherit things, right? So in this book, it starts out, it's very surreal, very existential. We have Mr. Miracle coming up. We open up, he's committed suicide. And we don't know what's going because it's very surreal and these characters are coming up. And he's a very different man. He seems to have lost the will to live. He slit his wrist and you feel like everybody's coming by like, what the hell's wrong with you? It's very jarring and stuff, right? And the art and the coloring in this, they're using a lot of the two tones, which I do not like in this day and age. Using the two tones throughout a whole book and stuff. To me, it's just kind of lazy. It makes the book feel unsettling. But that's what's needed in this book. This actually works with the coloring and the two tones. It gives it that surreal application. And going straight forward with it, Scott Free has tried to keep. Yes, yes. Hey, what's up? So what's come in here is that Mr. Miracle seems to have lost the will to live, and everybody's rallying around him a little bit, but they're not being very empathetic towards him. Everybody seems like it's coming down onto him. Everybody's kind of hateful. He's going through kind of dreamy, not sure what's going on, and he gets recruited for a war. and we'll have Gredney, you know, and you start delving in with these pages that you don't know if they mean anything because you're just kind of looking at them. For example, the two pages I can think of is one page is that he's recruited into the war by the new gods against Apocalypse. This is it. This is the big war. This is the Ragnarok, is how it's feeling. And it's just a page where they're like out on just a very flat surface, and there's just a horizon in the back. And they turn around, and it's just a whole page of him fighting with this parademon, and he ends up like slitting his throat. You're not used to seeing Mr. Miracle getting all hands on. And they talk about Granny Goodness. He talks with Big Barda. He starts talking about family. Big Barda like trained, you know, kids would be handed on Apocalypse to Granny Goodness, and they were grown up in a very cruel fashion, abusive fashion and stuff. And for some reason, that's the only mother figure he had. Then he starts thinking about Orion, and Orion is now taking Highfather's place. See, this book needs to be read as a whole. It's very hard to do a review and keep it linear because it's not a linear story. Yeah, it's a great book, right? So all of a sudden, what does all this mean? This is about family. We're seeing interpretations of Granny Goodness where she's actually being nice to Scott, you know, and trying to warn him like we can't hear. And Orion is just a super asshole who's making him bow before him and call him Highfather. And everyone around him is going with this, and Scott's getting jerked around. You know, you've survived this war, and you're a general here in this war, so we're going to send you over here somewhere worse. The better you do your job, the more they try to bring you down. And through this whole thing, it's just a very surreal and existential feeling. So now you can tell this is building up to a big confrontation between Orion. The constant 9-panel grid is a little restricted and gimmicky, though. It's not a perfect book. That's why I feel like it needs to be read in there. But when you take those panels, like I'm talking about, like where he's just fighting the parademon, and in issue 3, it shows him still performing his Mr. Miracle escape artist tactics, and they show him getting into a box that's chained up, you know, real high on a scaffold, and you don't see him escape. It looks like he just crashes and burns and dies, and you turn the page, and he's fine. And he's trying to explain it's not a trick. I'm not performing. I'm really escaping. What I think is going on is the anti-life equation, going back to the Kirby days, is what Darkseid wanted. The whole point of Darkseid sending his forces and how the new gods ended up coming to Earth is the anti-life equation is supposed to give him complete, I guess, mind control or something over any being, any living beings, you know. And that's that mathematical formula that makes up the anti-life equation is supposed to be like in our subconscious. This is 6 years before, you know, this is 6 years. This is 8, 7, 8, 9 years before Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where the Earth is a computer and as humans we're all part of the computer program that's going to tell us the secret of life, right? It's fantastic. But anyway, that equation is supposed to be in our subconscious, at least a part of it. I think Darkseid has it. And I think what it is doing is that the anti-life equation, I think Tom King's taken the word anti-life quite literal, okay? So you don't want to live. It saps your strength. And now we have, I think Darkseid is one, and he has it. So where's this taking? Is this in the the subconscious space in our minds where the anti-life equation can be found, you know, the part of the equation? And what we're seeing is with the parademon fight on that one page is that this is Scott Free fighting back. That is death coming. That parademon is death. That parademon is Darkseid. That parademon is the anti-life equation, and he's fighting it. And he keeps getting knocked down. Now, what this means to me is that he's going up and down Jacob's ladder trying to escape this in his head. And we're in these little 9-grid panels where you're reading this and you're like, why is this in the story? What does it mean and stuff? It's him going up and down. It's him fighting back and winning. It's him losing. It's him going up and down, and he's struggling fighting because he's a great escape artist and he's escaping death and the anti-life equation. So I kind of hope that's what we have going on here. So we're 3 issues in, and it is definitely built up to Orion beating the shit out of him on the last 4 pages of Mr. Miracle number 3, which made me think it is Jacob's Ladder. Alright guys, that was just a little quick review, real disjointed. I think the new gods occupy a fictional space that's always kind of outside the DC multiverse. Didn't Multiverse explain that the new gods don't change across worlds? Yeah, they've gone back and forth with that. We'll go ahead and answer some questions here. They live in a dimension. It's never been called a parallel world. They are supposed to be in another dimension. And this was really highlighted in Crisis on Infinite Earths back in '85, because what a lot of people kind of forget is that that last bit, Darkseid ended up being the saving uh, the new Earth, if you will, in at the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths. They weren't affected by all the parallel Earths dying by the by the antimatter and stuff because they were in another dimension and they were able to stay hid. And then in the very last issue, Darkseid came in and hit him. Was able to like get one shot in there that nobody really talks about or remembers and stuff. So yeah, that's about it. So yeah, they're in another universe. So we're dealing with new gods and some very subtle biblical influences in this book, I think, which is all open interpretation. I think it's really dangerous to assume too much of this because this is one of those stories that hooks you, and that part of the mystery of what's going on is what makes you want to read it. What am I reading? What does this mean? Does this mean something? So I definitely think we're seeing a battle of wills. The thing starts out with him giving up on life and slashing his wrist, and the rest of this is him climbing back to wanting to live in the will, and he's figuring it out. And Mr. Miracle's the perfect character. Along the way, he's making peace with things in his life. Great and goodness and interpretations, and Orion's supposed to be his brother through the pact. Ben Granoff, everyone at DC likes to ignore Grant Morrison's idea. Yeah. Okay, we got people going on. That was a shitty review because it's a very hard book to review as it is, so we can do answers and questions and stuff. There's some people hanging in here. But the whole concept of taking this character with Mr. Miracle and doing this sort of story with him is just genius, man. It's so fresh. Which runs of New Gods would you recommend? I've only just started the initial 1971 run. It all depends, man. I think if you want to get Kirby's vision, you need all the Fourth World books that came out. Did you catch the Kirby-esque copy that leads into each issue? I think those are chronologically aligned in the 70s run. I'll get to that, man. But when it comes to like the New Gods, the stories and stuff, the Kirby stuff, that's the pure things that they did. Later in the 70s, they did Return of the New Gods and started to run again with the issue. Let's say Marshall Rogers was on those. So definitely get the Kirby stuff. I don't think that New Gods run, the Return of the New Gods, it depends if you're a fan or not because they gave them superhero costumes. They kind of brought them in as more superheroes. Then there was a little bit of a resurgence in the early 80s with the Baxter series. Now this is important. There's a 6-issue Baxter series that came out around 83 where they reprinted 2 issues each of the New Gods Kirby run, but in that 6th issue, there's new pages along with a graphic novel called The Hunger Dogs that finished the Fourth World saga on its own. I mean, it didn't answer everything, but Kirby got to come in and kind of finish it. So the Baxter series number 6, you can look it up. This will make sense. The Baxter series that reprinted each issue of the New Gods, number 6, and The Hunger Dogs. And then honestly, I don't think anything really substantial came out until somebody mentioned the Orion run by Walt Simonson, which is really good. That was fantastic. Jack Kirby got in there with, they had a New Gods book come out in the 90s, but they turned it into Jack Kirby's Fourth World. That's good stuff. Really felt like Kirby covered about a third of his original vision. Yeah, and it's real shitty what happened. There's a lot of stories to it, but just to simplify it, since we're talking about it here, but Kirby came in, left Marvel, came to DC, and was going to be the big superstar. But you had Carmine Infantino running things, more or less could be their editor-in-chief. I think he was a DC publisher, I don't know. But he came in, and he just decided to like keep Kirby in his place and put a thumb on him and messed up a whole lot of his stuff. Kind of held him back, was pulling things, and there's been a lot said about it over the years in comic book lore and actually in a few articles and stuff I've read. So yeah, Carmine Infantino just kind of disillusioned Kirby with him coming in thinking he's going to be universe creating, which is what you should do when you have somebody like Kirby. And he was under contract to do 15 pages a week. So after the demise of the bi-monthly books of the 4 books that were the Fourth World, New Gods, Forever People, Mr. Miracle, and Jimmy Olsen, those kind of dissolved, and he ended up doing things like Losers, OMAC, Commandy, which was probably his biggest, most successful book, right underneath Fantastic Four, things like that. So he didn't get to finish it. 15 pages a week is insane. Yeah, it is. And he did it. He was a workhorse. He provided for his family. Kirby's respected for a reason, even though he got treated like crap a lot over the years and stuff. But he did it. And not only did Kirby do 15 pages a week, the Demon just had a softcover release too. Book is wild. I believe it or not, I've only read 4 or 5 issues of that Demon series that Kirby did back in the Bronze Age, the 70s, when it was at DC. And from what I hear, what I've read over the years, that was a contractual obligation. Kirby didn't want to do that book, and that ended up being some of his best stuff. I really enjoyed the 3 or 4 issues I have, you know. Um, and I really would like to get all of them. You know, I buy them when I find them. It's bananas. Yeah. And isn't it amazing how the window that Jack Kirby was working for DC in the early 70s, that little window, how all of those books influenced everything for years. It gave us Darkseid, the big villain. It influenced the Super Friends cartoon by bringing those characters in. We got Cosmic Odyssey out of it from Jim Starlin with Mike Mignola on it and stuff. John Byrne came in on Superman in the 80s, and, you know, we had Legends going on at the same time, you know, which was also a pseudo-biblical story, the story of Job, I think. Um, and things like that, how Kirby influenced so much, and we're still feeling it from those books. As far as the one-shots go, I almost ordered all the one-shots and decided not to because they're one-shots. Do they fit into the New Gods back in the day and stuff like that? I don't know. I don't know. No biggie. All right, guys. Any more questions here? Didn't really hold on to a lot of people with this one here. Okay, guys. That's it. All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Later.